All right. Good afternoon, folks. My name is Prashant Bangle, and I'm the General Manager for FSx for Windows File Server. And I'm really excited to be here to talk to you about running your network-attached storage workloads in the cloud with Amazon FSx. I'm joined by my colleague, Andy Krudge, who's the head of product for FSx for NetApp ONTAP. And I'm also joined by Rebecca Sandheim, who is coming to us from Vanguard, to share a customer perspective about using Amazon FSx. So let's get right into it then. So when we talk about file workloads, we are really talking about a broad spectrum of workloads that interact with file storage, that benefit from file storage. So we are talking about a range of storage administrators, IT administrators, application administrators, application owners, and so on the one hand. And we are talking about workloads that they run, like enterprise IT applications, user shares, team shares, collaboration environments, software build environments, backup and disaster recovery applications, a whole range of applications that you see generally being run by these kinds of customer personas. And then on the other side, we have builders and data scientists who are building cloud-native applications in the areas of machine learning, data science and analytics, software as a service applications, DevOps platforms, and so on. So there's really a broad spectrum of personas with their own use cases on each side. And then there's a bunch of workloads that intersect in the middle as well. Things like line of business applications, everything from media and entertainment workflows to EDA workloads in the semiconductor industry, and so on. And also there's a whole variety of web serving and content management applications, things like document management, image management, and so on. So there's a really broad spectrum of these workloads that use files to store their data, interact with data, analyze data, and process data. So that's really the spectrum of file workloads when we say files. What we have seen is it really comes down to three usage patterns for file storage in the cloud. When we look at how we serve this entire broad spectrum of workloads, these are the usage patterns that we have seen appear time and again for file storage in the cloud. So it tends to be that customers want to run their network-attached storage in the cloud. And I'll talk to you in a few slides about why they would want to run network-attached storage in the cloud. They want to leverage the cloud's virtually unlimited performance scale, compute scale, in order to accelerate time to results for their compute-intensive workloads. Think about HPC workloads, think about a lot of different ML and analytics workloads where getting time to results to be really fast is really important. And you want to leverage the cloud's virtually unlimited compute scale in order to get to results sooner. And then there's the other usage pattern which we see, which is builders just building a lot of cloud-native applications and wanting to have a really easy way to share their data across cloud resources, cloud workflows, and things like that. They're really just looking for the easiest path to have a file share that they can use across their resources. So those are really the three usage patterns that we see. And we are razor-focused on providing the best file solutions to serve the three usage patterns that we talk about here. So we have Amazon FSx, which is a family of services that I'll talk about in a bit, that offers file systems that are purpose-built for both NAS workloads as well as scale-out workloads. And it provides them in a cloudified way. That's how FSx is able to serve the usage patterns 1 and 2 that I talked about. And then for the usage pattern 3 here, we offer Amazon EFS, which gives serverless, fully elastic file storage that's really designed for builders from the ground up. In this session, we'll focus on the first usage pattern of running NAS workloads in the cloud and how FSx delivers on that front. We have other breakout sessions focused on the other two topics as well. So let's first talk about why have your NAS data in the cloud to begin with. When we talk about running your NAS data in the cloud, it's really a bunch of different reasons that customers would want to bring both their NAS data as well as the workloads that rely on that data to the cloud. They would want to improve reliability but they don't want to have to do all of the operational heavy lifting that goes behind getting that level of reliability. They want to raise their security bar. They really want to easily and robustly secure data. They want to optimize TCO and really fine-tune TCO for their workload needs so that they can achieve optimal costs. They want to increase agility. They want to really enable their teams to move fast by being able to do things like launch and scale storage in minutes, spin up and spin down file systems as needed without having to worry about provisioning, delays, or anything like that. And then they also want to automate their storage deployment workflows using infrastructure as code. So really by way of cloudifying these network-attached storage systems in the cloud, they are able to now just issue API calls and CLI calls and have infrastructure as code so that they can automate their deployment workflows and their test workflows and so on. And they want to leverage innovative new data processing in the cloud as well. They want to do everything from analyze the data in new ways to gain insights into their data in new ways and things like that. So customers really want to bring their NAS data over to the cloud. However, moving on-prem NAS data over to the cloud has been hard, historically speaking. Switching your solution from one NAS solution to another can take months, and in some cases even years. And that's really because each NAS solution offers a very unique set of data access features, data management APIs, performance profiles, cost profiles, things like that. And customers have built applications, workflows, user workflows, all sorts of things based around these data access features, data management features, and so on. So if they move from one NAS solution to another, they're going to have to do a lot of re-architecting, recertifying, retraining. They almost have to rethink their entire workflow situation and things like that. And so migrating to a different NAS solution has really been time-consuming, hard, complex, something that customers don't want to do. So enter FSx, the service family we introduced a couple of years back. It stands for File System X. What Amazon FSx does is it offers you the file system of your choice that serves your workload needs. So what do we mean by that? What we mean by your choice is you're able to launch, run, and scale feature-rich, highly performant, cost-effective, and fully managed storage that's powered by your choice of the world's most popular file systems. So we offer 4 choices on the FSx family. There's FSx for NetApp ONTAP, there's OpenZFS, there's Windows File Server, and there's Lustre. And so depending on your workload needs, you'd be able to spin up a file system of your choice and connect your applications to the file system and get going. FSx is really the easiest path to run NAS in the cloud, and it does this in 2 different ways. It makes it really easy for you to migrate to like-for-like storage with the same capabilities and APIs that you've been used to over time. What we mean by that is, for example, let's say you're running a NetApp ONTAP NAS deployment on premises. If you want to move your NAS to the cloud, you just move it over to FSx for NetApp ONTAP. If you're running a Windows File Server clustered deployment, for example, you just move it over to FSx for Windows File Server. And if you're running ZFS or Linux-based file servers today on premises, you just move that NAS data over to FSx for OpenZFS. And so it really makes it the easiest path to migrate to like-for-like storage with the same capabilities and APIs. And then what that means is you no longer have to re-architect, reinvent, recertify, retrain, do all of those things that would have taken you a lot of time and complexity. And the second way it's the easiest path to run NAS in the cloud is it allows you to build and run NAS workloads leveraging the rich capabilities and performance profiles of these popular file systems. These file systems come with a lot of different capabilities that I'll talk about in a slide or 2. So let's dive into each of the file system options that we provide on FSx a little bit now. Let's start with FSx for Windows File Server. So this service makes it easy and cost-effective to deploy Windows-based applications. It provides storage that's built on native Windows Server, delivering full compatibility and really sort of direct migration capabilities for your Windows-based workloads. It's used for a variety of different Windows workloads. We have customers running their .NET-based enterprise IT applications, user and team shares, SQL Server cluster deployments, including highly available SQL Server failover cluster instances, IIS web serving, document content management, image content management, and so on. Media editing, where we see a lot of customers doing remote cloud video editing, especially since COVID. A lot of customers have been doing remote cloud video editing using this kind of capability. And then they also run these video rendering workloads that require highly performant shared file storage on Windows. And then there's also a lot of different virtual desktop infrastructure or VDI workloads. We have customers using workspaces instances on Amazon, AppStream 2.0 instances, VMware Cloud on AWS VMs, or even just plain EC2 instances, and then connecting them all to a shared file storage that stores user profiles, shared data, user shares, team shares, things like that. So it's really a pretty wide range of workloads that customers are using this service for. The key here is the drop-in compatibility for Windows applications. The second offering we have is FSx for NetApp ONTAP. This offering is really the only complete, fully managed ONTAP file system in the cloud. What do we mean by that? It's the only fully managed cloud service with really full support, complete support for ONTAP's data management features and APIs, for ONTAP storage efficiency features, and for ONTAP capabilities like SnapMirror and SnapVault replication. So it's really ONTAP as is that provides all of these ONTAP capabilities that you've been used to if you're already using NetApp ONTAP. What that means is it's really the easiest path to migrate or extend NetApp deployments over to the cloud. So let's dive a little more into what we mean by ONTAP capabilities. So when we talk about it's a complete ONTAP file system, what we really mean is it provides the full set of data management features of ONTAP, things like being able to use the ONTAP CLI, ONTAP REST APIs, and things like that, and also things like using the tools and user interfaces that you've already been used to, things like Snap Center and so on. And also it means things like how you manage your volumes and your data set overall using things like storage virtual machines, FlexVol volumes, Flex Group volumes, and so on. So it's really the full, complete set of data management APIs and capabilities we are talking about. When we talk about data access and data protection, we mean things like multi-protocol support, Active Directory integration support, a lot of the advanced NFS and SMB features like NFS NConnect, SMB multi-channel, and so on for high performance. And then it also means things like data protection features around antivirus scanning, snapshots, access-based enumeration, and so on. So it's really that full set we are talking about. And then another really important area that customers like a lot about ONTAP that they would want to retain when they move NAS data over to the cloud is storage efficiency support that it provides. Things like data deduplication, compression, thin provisioning, incremental backups, fabric pool tiering, all of these things. So it's really that full set of capabilities that you continue to enjoy. And then finally, there's a whole set of capabilities that ONTAP provides to run your deployments across different environments. So let's say, for example, extending from on-premises over to the cloud, or running your deployment across multiple regions using features like SnapMirror, FlexCache, and so on. So it's really this full set of capabilities that we are talking about. We just wanted to give you a sense for what we mean by complete support of capabilities. So that's the purpose of this word cloud here. What do we mean by easily extend ONTAP to the cloud? So it's not just that you can migrate easily using all of the ONTAP capabilities you're used to, but you can also run multi-region disaster recovery, or maybe on-prem to AWS disaster recovery and things like that, using SnapMirror or SnapVault capabilities within ONTAP. You can also do cloud bursting, where you actually bring your compute over to the cloud, but you have your data continuing to reside on premises in some cases. For example, we see a lot of media and entertainment companies wanting to use this kind of a workflow, where you can actually spin up a cache in the cloud to access your on-premises primary data, and you can use a feature called ONTAP Flex Cache to do that. And then you can also, flipping this caching model the other way around, you can also run your workloads on premises while storing your primary data in the cloud on FSx by using on-premises caching mechanisms using capabilities on NetApp like Flex Cache or Global File Cache. So it's really all of these different ways you can extend ONTAP to the cloud. You can have different locations for your compute and data and still have everything work together seamlessly. So that's about FSx for NetApp ONTAP. The third offering is FSx for OpenZFS to serve NAS workloads. So let's start first by talking about what OpenZFS is, for those of you who might not be familiar with it. It's a powerful open source file system that was purpose-built for high performance and scale. It stands for Zettabyte File System, ZFS, and it was built from the ground up with copy on write architecture, with the foundation being really well suited for doing things like fast, efficient snapshots, data cloning, really quickly and efficiently cloning your data set, and so on. It has a lot of support for dedicated, efficient caching with things like the adaptive replay cache, the L2, the level 2 adaptive replay cache. There's a whole layer called ZIL for logging to make your writes really fast. So there's a lot of different high-performance oriented features that are built into the file system. And then there's a lot of different cost efficiency features as well, storage efficiency features, things like thin provisioning, user quotas, data compression, and so on. So that's about what OpenZFS is. Now, if you look at where OpenZFS is actually deployed by customers on premises, it has traditionally been used for a variety of different data-intensive workloads. We are talking about things like machine learning training, chip design, EDA workloads and stuff like that, financial analytics, media rendering, game development and streaming. So there's a lot of performance-oriented, data-intensive workloads. Why have customers been using OpenZFS for these workloads? It's really because these workloads require highly performant NFS accessible storage. They don't need all of the enterprise features that come along with commercial offerings. So they don't want to have to pay for the bells and whistles of the commercial offerings. And so OpenZFS was designed to deliver the highest levels of performance for these kinds of workloads, and it commonly delivers 20 to 40% better price performance relative to commercial offerings because it's open source file system. And so coming to FSx for OpenZFS now, what this service does is it delivers the power of ZFS without customers needing to worry about the complexity of configuring it, tuning it, maintaining it, optimizing its configuration, all of those things. You get OpenZFS that's deployed and fully managed for you on your behalf, and you just get an endpoint that your applications connect to and perform high performance analytics, processing, and so on that file system. Like with our other FSx offerings, it leverages the latest AWS innovations, including things like the AWS compute, storage, as well as networking innovations. And it's able to deliver continual performance improvements over time by upgrading to the latest AWS innovations and delivering the highest levels of throughput scalability, IOPS scalability, the lowest levels of latencies, and so on. So let me pause here for a moment and invite Andy Krudge to continue our presentation.
Perfect. So thanks everyone for joining. By ways of introduction, my name is Andy Krudge. I lead the product management team for the FSx ONTAP service. First thing I want to do is, Prash talked about Amazon FSx really being an easy solution for two kinds of use cases. One is migrating or extending NAS-based workloads to the cloud. And the second one is customers building and running applications in the cloud that can benefit from NAS capabilities. First thing I want to do is actually talk through a couple customer anecdotes of customers who are able to take advantage of both of these paths. So the first customer is John Holland Group. John Holland Group, unfortunately, they actually had a legacy storage environment failure on premises that impacted about 90 of their applications. They were historically running a Windows server-based file system on-prem, and they were able to actually, in response to this event, migrate over their data and continue running their workload on FSx for Windows File Server within 48 hours. And the reason they're able to do so quickly and so easily really came down to the fact that FSx for Windows File Server is built on Windows Server. From a compatibility, from a familiarity perspective, the service served as a drop-in replacement for what they had and really made that migration path really quick and really easy for this customer. As a side benefit, by now having their data in a fully managed service, they were able to free up their engineering resources that they were previously spending trying to manage their on-prem system to do a lot more meaningful things for their business. So it's a double win. Another great example of a customer is Vela Games. Vela Games actually had a cloud-based workload that they were running historically, but they were not using shared storage before. And with the launch of Amazon FSx for OpenZFS about a year ago, they were able to actually move their application over to use shared storage powered by Amazon FSx for OpenZFS. And in doing so, they were able to reduce their video game build times by about 60%. And this ultimately, obviously meant that they can get games out faster. It increased also their development cycle for their teams and allowed their teams to go much more quickly to build and test their games. And again, all this is made possible because of some of the rich capabilities that OpenZFS provides and the shared storage that it provides in the cloud. So one of the things Prash mentioned earlier was that with OpenZFS, but really with all of our file systems, we're continuously looking to innovate, deliver new capabilities, new features over time. And for those of you who joined us at reInvent last year, excited to share, we've been investing really heavily across our FSx file systems to deliver net new capabilities and features. And I'm not going to go through every one of these on this slide, but there are about 20 major capabilities that we've launched across our FSx family alone just in the past year. And we're not done yet. I'm actually really excited to share with you some brand new capabilities that we're launching today for a couple of our FSx offerings. First set of capabilities is for FSx for ONTAP service that are really geared at making it even easier to use the product. So the first capability is for those of you who've played with the service previously, if you go to create a multi-easy file system, I'll save you a lot of details, but the way that it works is the endpoints that you use on your file system to access data actually live outside of your VPC's IP address space. That's historically how it's worked. And what that would mean is that if you wanted to access your data from on-premises, in order to correctly route to those IP addresses, you would actually need to set up some extra custom routing. You would need to go to your transit gateway, go to your on-prem route table, and add an extra route to tell your routers how to route traffic to these IP addresses, because they were not part of your VPC. Starting today, we've launched a new capability where when you create a multi-easy file system, you can actually choose to have all of your endpoints for your file system live within your VPC's IP space. For those of you who've used the service, you'll recognize how useful this capability is in that what it allows you to do is continue using your existing routes, your existing firewall rules, and access all of your data from on-prem without needing to do any custom setup, any custom configuration. Another capability I'm excited to announce is starting today, we now support EC2 Nitro-based encryption in transit in supported regions. What this capability allows you to do is if you're accessing a file system that supports the capability from a Nitro-based EC2 instance, your traffic between your file system and your client is automatically encrypted in transit. This encryption is done automatically. It's done without a performance penalty, and it requires no setup for you to do. So previously, we've always supported Kerberos-based encryption in transit on FSx ONTAP. We continue to support Kerberos-based encryption in transit, but this gives you another option to have your data encrypted really without having to do any setup. And this is supported for new file systems, and again, in a set of 4 supported regions, Virginia, Ohio, Oregon, and Dublin. In addition, we're always looking to raise the bar in performance and give customers higher performance and lower price for performance as well. Excited to launch a new capability on FSx ONTAP where we're actually now today doubling the maximum SSD throughput and IOPS that you can drive to a file system. Previously, the maximum performance you could drive was about 2 gigabytes per second, and we're now doubling that. So you can now create a file system that supports a throughput capacity of up to 4 gigabytes per second. And similarly, we're doubling the maximum SSD IOPS that you can provision per file system. In addition, on the performance front, for those of you who've used the service before, one of the capabilities that customers commonly use with our multi-ISI file systems is on multi-ISI file systems since launch, we've offered an NVMe read cache. Built into file systems, don't need to configure anything extra to take advantage of it. And what this does is it caches your most actively read data and delivers lower latencies and higher performance for that data. Starting today, we're now adding read caching for single ISI file systems as well. So if you create a new file system in supported regions, you now can also have an NVMe read cache automatically included. And what this enables you to do is to drive even higher levels of performance for read-heavy workloads like databases, like electronic design automation, up to 6 gigabytes per second in total of throughput, and over 600,000 IOPS for data that lives in the cache. Similarly, we're also announcing a number of performance enhancements for our FSx for OpenZFS service. So just like with ONTAP, with OpenZFS, we're announcing a next-generation file system option that delivers up to 2x higher SSD throughput and IOPS from a previous generation. We're increasing the maximum throughput per file system from 4 to 10 gigabytes per second, and the maximum SSD IOPS from 160,000 to 350,000. We've gotten great feedback over the past year and a half since we've had FSx ONTAP out on the NVMe read cache that we support with multi-ISI file systems. So much so that we've announced it for single ISI ONTAP file systems today. And we're now also, with OpenZFS, adding read caching support for next generation file systems as well. And with the NVMe read cache, again, same benefits as with ONTAP, where it allows you to have lower latencies and higher throughput and IOPS for frequently read data. With the NVMe read cache, you can drive over 20 gigabytes per second of read throughput and over 1 million IOPS to data that's stored in this cache. A pretty significant performance improvement over what customers could do before. So we spent a lot of time earlier talking about how Amazon FSx makes it easy to migrate to the cloud because it offers like-for-like storage, same capabilities, same features. One of the things I want to spend a couple moments now double-clicking on is some of the benefits that we're seeing customers get by having their data in AWS and by using Amazon FSx for their NAS. These are benefits that we're seeing customers leverage as part of being in the cloud, and benefits I want to share with you so that you can keep them under consideration as you're designing your cloud architecture and thinking through how you want to deploy your storage. There's 6 themes. I'm going to go through each of these in turn, and I won't repeat these because Prasha mentioned them earlier. But with that said, first theme is improving reliability without the operational lifting. As we've said a couple times, FSx is a managed service. And what does a managed service mean? Really what it means is our goal is for you as a customer to be spending time thinking about how are you managing your data? How are you accessing your data, protecting it? How are you adding value for your business? And spending less time worrying about the low-level infrastructure or the software that's powering your file storage. So as one example, with FSx, with all of our FSx services, we're constantly testing, pressure testing, smoke testing, and operating at an unprecedented scale. To give you an example, since we launched the FSx service 4 years ago, we've created over 100 million file systems and over 100 million backups for testing. And our goal here, and the reason we're continuously testing and pressure testing the infrastructure and the software we run, is we want to catch those 1 in 1,000, 1 in 10,000 issues before you do. We spend a lot of time as a service team investing in making sure that the storage you get is available, is durable, is resilient, and that if there are any issues, if there are any bugs in OpenZFS or Windows software, we've identified them, we've mitigated them, and we've built that mitigation automatically into the service so that our customers don't need to be the first ones to run into them or run into them at all. We also, with all of our file systems, we're constantly monitoring the infrastructure, the software, the hardware that's powering your file system. And for example, if we see a file server or a disk that's not healthy, we have automation to automatically detect that, replace it. Our goal here is for any file system you create to be available, to be resilient, to be able to serve you effectively on healthy hardware, healthy software. We also provide a unified support experience end-to-end for the storage that you create. We've often, when we talk to customers about their migration journey to the cloud, we sometimes hear anecdotes of customers who maybe buy software from one vendor and buy infrastructure from another vendor. And sometimes what we've seen is customers are challenged in those situations where maybe if they have an issue, one vendor will point to the other and vice versa. And ultimately, with FSx, our responsibility, and it's one we take very seriously, is providing you an end-to-end experience where we're responsible for making sure your file system works. It's available, it's serving you, delivers the right performance. Regardless of whether there's a quirk in the hardware, quirk in the software, we provide an end-to-end support experience so that you have one place to go to ensure that you're receiving the level of support, the level of resiliency that you need. We offer multi-easy file system option. For those of you who are familiar with on-prem, it's kind of like a metro cluster deployment option where you can have a file system. You have the option with our Windows and ONTAP service to have a file system that's automatically deployed across multiple availability zones with data synchronously replicated with automatic failover. Things that you would maybe need to do yourself if you were rolling your own file system, this capability is built into the offering, so you can get that multi-easy resiliency without the heavy lifting. We offer automatic and secure backups on all of our FSx offerings. And lastly, we stand behind all of this with an availability SLA that we publish. And again, this speaks to the testing, the resiliency, the availability, all these things that we do to provide a highly resilient service to you. The second is we're seeing customers as part of migrating to the cloud able to not just meet, but raise their security bar. And this is a constant area where we ourselves are investing and customers are investing as well. From a service perspective, we're constantly scanning and patching the underlying software powering your file system to identify any issues that may come up, any security vulnerabilities. That's something we do automatically from a service perspective. So you're not worrying about looking for CVEs or looking for software vulnerabilities. We offer automatic encryption of your data at rest. I talked about, for example, in the previous slide, how we also offer automatic and transit encryption options without penalty, without performance penalty, without overhead for you to set up, making it easy for you to ensure your data is encrypted. We integrate with a number of AWS services that make it easy for you to flag, detect, log, audit access to your data. You can flog anomalous activity with CloudTrail and GuardDuty. You can control and monitor administrative actions with AWS IAM. And you can simplify your file access auditing with CloudTrail logs and Kinesis. With FSx for Windows, we offer a native file auditing capability where you can have all of your audit logs streamed to CloudWatch Logs, which is virtually bottomless audit logging, so you don't even need to manage infrastructure capacity. And this allows you to simplify having all of your logging set up without you needing to set up any infrastructure to do so. And lastly, we offer a number of industry standard compliance eligibilities. I'm not going to go through the full list, but again, apologies. This speaks to all the investments we make to ensure your data is secure. TCO. We're seeing customers constantly looking for ways to optimize and fine-tune their TCO. So one of the big benefits of running in the cloud is you only need to pay for the resources you use. I'm sure you hear this commonly, but this is especially true in the storage space. We have customers all the time who they want to run a test. They'll add hundreds of terabytes of data. The next week, they delete it all. That's something they can only easily do in the cloud because you only need to pay for those 100 terabytes for the 7 days that you actually stored it. And this allows customers to achieve great cost savings relative to solutions where you may need to pay upfront, procure upfront, and you're committed to storage for 3+ years. We also, by offering a pretty broad portfolio, make it easy for customers to use the most optimized service for each workload. Very often on-prem, Customers will buy a large filer from one vendor. And they will, because they have that as a sunk cost, they will try to run each of their workloads, all of their workloads, on that one hardware type, software type. By making it easy for customers to deploy Windows in one case, Lustre in another case, ONTAP in another, you can choose for each of your individual workloads the most optimal file system for that workload. Excuse me. Apologies. We're also constantly investing in price performance improvements. Talked about some of them on the previous slide. This is a continuous area for us. We want to give you the fastest performance for the lowest price, and we're not done investing in the space. Lastly, we're excited to offer the lowest cost NAS options in the cloud. With this, again, and this should go without saying, but this allows customers to store their data as cheaply as possible once they migrate it over. What do I mean by this? So typically when we look at storage, there's really two classes of storage customers are commonly using with NAS. There's capacity storage, which is really for colder data, and there's performance-oriented storage, like SSD storage. With capacity storage, to share a few examples, we're excited to offer the lowest cost ONTAP-based NAS in the cloud. We have, with FSx ONTAP, a capacity pool tier. It's 2.2 cents. And we also support NetApp data compression, data deduplication, that allows you to achieve a TCO that's even below 1 cent per gigabyte per month. Similarly, with FSx Windows, we offer the lowest cost NAS for Windows workloads in the cloud, also TCO, well above a cent for HDD storage. On the performance front, we talked about OpenZFS being really cost optimized for high performance workloads. OpenZFS delivers SSD storage at 9 cents and also supports data compression, making it the cheapest SSD NAS-based NAS in the cloud. And all this is important for us to make sure that as you're able to migrate to the cloud, as customers are able to migrate to the cloud, they can achieve cost savings, not just maintain their current costs, but actually reduce costs relative to what they were paying on-prem. One benefit really excited about is increasing agility. So in the cloud, talked about being able to pay only for what you use. Running in the cloud model means you can now deploy, run, and scale storage in minutes. On-prem, sometimes it takes days, weeks to think of an idea. Maybe you need to procure storage, wait for hardware to land, set it up. All of that happens. All that can happen in just minutes in the cloud. And what this means is, and I shared the example of customers who create 100 terabyte file systems and spin them down a week later. This allows customers to test and build with no strings attached. And what this enables really is really quick experimentation where you can easily spin up a file system for a particular project, for a particular team, do what you need, spin it down when you're done, and not worry about upfront planning, upfront managing. Do I need this capacity? Do I not? Should I defer running this because maybe I'll have more capacity then? We want to make it easy for you to do what you want today and not worry about being committed to a storage spend tomorrow. And all these capabilities allow you to rapidly and cost-effectively experiment, play around. You can react to your changing business needs more quickly. One of the things we'll see often is you can scale storage because you can scale storage in minutes. Customers aren't worrying about trying to project their storage needs months in advance or years in advance. If you could scale in minutes, you can plan, plan for what you have today, and that's all you need to do. Another theme is in the cloud, you can actually automate your storage deployments. Not only is it quick, but it's also easy and automatable. We fully integrate with AWS CloudFormation that allows you to deploy your storage resources as code. And what this allows customers to do is to standardize and automate their storage deployments. You can invest in creating a template that deploys storage a particular way. And you can copy and paste that template. You can deploy 100 file systems the same way. You can deploy file systems across regions, across availability zones, and have repeatable patterns for automating and deploying your data. You can also automate all this. With CloudFormation, customers can more easily test, deploy with CI/CD, have actual infrastructure modeled as code, and test things like disaster recovery, things like what happens if you need to create a new file system to expand your footprint. All these things are easy to do and automate. And lastly, and I'll double click on this in the next slide, we're seeing an interesting shift where by making it so easy to provision storage, we're actually seeing a trend where in some cases, end users who previously never would have managed storage are now actually able to create their own file systems based on pre-approved templates in their organization. So what do I mean by this? There's really two deployment patterns that we often see with our file services in the cloud. One of these I'll call the centrally owned storage model. And this is a model where central team manages file storage for the organization, and each of the application teams manage their compute, but they'll access that shared storage. This is a model that most commonly we see on premises as well. And with FSx, customers can easily replicate that same model. With this kind of deployment architecture, storage owners can now spend a lot less time managing infrastructure because FSx is a managed service, and can spend a lot more time working on supporting, onboarding their application teams. And we see this all the time. It's a deployment pattern that works. It's kind of like a lift and shift, if you will. The other pattern we see, and this is something that's enabled by all the automation that's possible in the cloud, is an end-user-owned storage model, where each application team actually takes ownership over the data, over the storage that they're using. And this is made possible by the fact that what we're seeing is with certain organizations, storage owners, rather than taking on the role of managing file system infrastructure, managing disks, managing kind of the hardware, in the cloud model, they can instead use that time to think through how can they build repeatable deployment patterns, pre-approved templates, safe, compliance meeting ways of deploying storage in their organization. And what they'll do is they'll create these repeatable templates and will provide them to application teams. Maybe it's in the form of a CloudFormation template, maybe it's in the form of a self-service portal. Where we're seeing a shift where some companies, they're able to take advantage of these agility and automation benefits to have storage owners help guide application teams to manage their own data, and for application teams to be able to take that and run with it and be a lot more agile, deploy the data they need in a safe, contained way. But this allows the storage teams to scale better and the application teams to move a lot faster. And the last point I want to talk through, I'm not going to go through each of the examples, but there are a number of innovative ways that simply by having your data in the cloud, you can do a lot more with it. You can process your data faster. You can use new machine learning services, containerized services, use services like Amazon Nimble Studio to produce media content. This is just a few examples of the AWS services we integrate with that allow you to get more data, get more mobility, make it even easier for you to deploy your storage in your applications. And this is a list that's going to grow over time. By having your data in the cloud, you're essentially unlocking the value of all of Amazon's compute services to be able to do more with that data. And we're really excited to kind of allow customers to go on that journey, get that additional data by offering a stable storage platform by which customers can access the data from these services. So with that said, I'm going to hand off the mic now to Rebecca. She's going to talk through Vanguard's journey migrating to the cloud with Amazon FSx.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to be honest with you. I know this is all your first session, probably after lunch, so food coma is setting in. I will try and make it quick, but happy to answer any questions along the way. So first and foremost, I'm really excited to be here on behalf of Vanguard. And for those of you who don't know who Vanguard is, we're actually one of the world's leading financial firms. We are based primarily out of Malvern, Pennsylvania, but we have offices worldwide. And we began operations in 1975. Primarily, some of the products we provide are ETFs and mutual funds. That's what we're known for. That being said, what I'm here to talk about today isn't necessarily Vanguard as a whole, but it's our file modernization journey. And so that really started in 2016 when we talked about moving to the public cloud. And we thought about modernizing at scale our applications, our infrastructure, even our data. And when we began that journey, we thought about things like microservices architecture, really custom-built applications. But over time, that's evolved, it's expanded. And so we think about file storage modernization in the better part of, let's say, the past year. And what we've done is really started to frame up that problem statement. And the problem statement was that ultimately, we were in a situation where we were about to buy another 5 years of hardware when we were telling everybody across IT that our goal was to modernize and move to the cloud. And so those two goals didn't really align. So we started on a journey to evaluate different on-prem solutions and different cloud solutions to see what our options were. And what we found is that we really needed to solidify our requirements because ultimately we hadn't changed file storage in quite some time. Our requirements included things like availability, scalability, cost, improved visibility into our customer base. Today, we actually have no clue what internal Vanguard customers are using for our file storage unless they reach out to us, unless they talk to us or ask questions. And so really rethinking this idea, this platform, was critically important to our modernization journey. And so what I'm here to talk about today is the fact that we chose NetApp ONTAP, leveraging FSx, that Prash and Andy just talked about. And the way we actually found out about this tool was last year at reInvent. And so really, really excited to now come back a year later and talk about why we chose Amazon FSx with NetApp ONTAP. Okay, so I talked about some requirements. Let's talk about why we chose them in terms of those requirements. So first and foremost, if anyone is closely partnered with their security partners, they would know that we definitely needed encryption in transit and encryption at rest. So we had Amazon FSx to provide that encryption at rest, and we had NetApp FlexCache to provide the encryption in transit, and Amazon Direct Connect. And we needed scaling. So when we talk about scaling up and down, we thought about our file modernization journey and all the applications that were moving on and off seamlessly. How could we make sure we weren't just buying 5 years more of infrastructure we were going to underutilize for a large portion of it? And so moving to NetApp ONTAP allowed us to have capacity pool storage. Then we talk about things like availability. So multi-region, I know Prash talked a little bit about NetApp SnapMirror and our ability to automate failover and multi-region recovery. And then we talk about going back to scaling and aligning that to cost. We were able to make sure we weren't paying up front for a bunch of hardware we weren't going to use, and we could scale down over time or scale up as needed. But if I'm being honest, our on-prem partners were making it really, really hard to make a cost play out of file storage modernization. In fact, when we thought about file storage, it was actually potentially equivalent, if not cheaper, to stay on-prem. And so what we didn't want to do was just say, hey, we're moving to the cloud to move to the cloud. How can we make this advantageous for everybody? And so coming up with a multi-tiered approach around requirements, challenging Amazon to help us think through how to save over time has really helped us come up with a solution we feel really great about. And then last but not least, I talked a little bit about this improved visibility for customers. We now actually get to know who our customers are, what they want, and get to provide a better platform as a result. So I want to talk a little bit about the architecture at a high level. As was discussed before, we're currently using Amazon FSx to host our data in the cloud, and then we use NetApp FlexCache to build that bridge between us and on-prem, and use Amazon Direct Connect in between. That being said, I think that's the primary part of my presentation. The one takeaway I will give all of you is that if you are going on a file storage modernization journey, don't just make it about cost. It will be really easy to say that you should stay on-prem. Think about all the different requirements and make sure that you don't get scared of hybrid. Oftentimes people think about the native solutions cloud provides, but hybrid has provided us a really great stepping stone to what's next in our journey. Thank you.